Good afternoon, bookworms. This is your magpie logging in. Oh my goodness, a little bit late. I don't even know if I can offer an excuse. I am so sorry, you guys. I knew I was supposed to go on a live, and I lost track of time with doing some things. Okay, in my defense though, it's bookworm related things, okay? So I was with my iPad listening to my music, grooving along, and I lost track of time, you guys. I was working on Daniel Little Chibi. Yes, I blame it all on Daniel. Daniel is the one that got me late, you guys. So I kid you not. Look, I'll even show you what I'm working on. Let's see where it was. I posted a little preview here on the let me see, on the Discord. I started working on this like a few hours ago, and I don't know, I just got caught up in it, and I apologize 1,000 times, you guys, for being late. And if you are still here waiting and you're watching me live, welcome and thank you for your patience. And if you're got fed up with Magpie because she got in 20 minutes late for the promised live stream, then I can only apologize, and I hope you enjoy the rewatch. And I hope you still continue with me on the journey for Jane Eyre. All right, everybody. So how's your Friday? That aside, my Friday has been kind of busy. So that's why I kind of like jumped at a chance to do some artwork, so that's fun. But for most of us, Friday is a day of rejoicing because the weekend is here. What do you guys have planned for your weekends? Do let me know. Anyway, so while you guys text and write your responses on the chat, just gonna read out loud and say the usual greetings to the early gang. Ooh, Blockshot, you got here first. Says, just here to say, have a nice stream. I'll watch the recording later when I wake up. I hope you have sweet dreams, and I hope you enjoy it. And also Crusher says, early gang here. I'm definitely gonna make it this time. Crusher, I'm so glad. Well, actually, I don't know if you are still here, but if you are, I'm glad that you're here. Red Tempest also says, we'll be outside watering lawns, so won't comment as much. Okay. No problem. Yes, 2 minutes late. Red Tempest, thank you for noting it. 3 minutes late, you say, I have arrived, says Crusher. I don't know if you're here, though. Anyway, good to see you guys here. Red Tempest knows the drill, though. I am never late, nor am I early. I arrive precisely when I mean to. All right, so I am here, and we're so ready to continue Jane Eyre, you guys. We are almost at the finish line. There's, I think, 2 or 3 chapters left. Let me check. This one, and then 2 more. But the last one, though, it's like super short, so I think we may be able to kill the last. So this is the second to last read along. I don't think I'm gonna do more than 1 chapter, but we'll finish in the next read along, which should be on Monday. So yeah, are you guys excited? This is by far one of the longest books I have ever read out loud, you guys. I have read plenty of bookworm books. I have read The Blue Castle, but I have never read one as long as this one, you guys. If you go to an Audible or whatever that has audiobooks, this is like 22 hours worth of, at least 22 hours worth of just audiobook, which is massive. This book is apparently more, it's larger than I remembered it was. But when I first read it, I just flew right through it. And honestly, it has been super fun. I haven't felt like, oh my gosh, I'm tired of this book. At least, and I hope you guys haven't felt like it too. It's a pretty big book, pretty long book, but I haven't really felt the strain on it. Let's see. Red Tempest says, better late than never. Right? I was like, oh man, I should just cancel. But no, the temptation to hide my embarrassment was there. To just say like, oh, I fell asleep and I woke up like at 8 p.m. I could have done that, but no, it was all because I was coloring a Daniel chibi. Isn't that's so stupid? By the way, let me see. I think I posted something. I'm getting closer to the final product. Let me see if I can show it to you. So you guys know I have been making progress. See, you guys, you know when I say like I'm going to do like I'm going to do some merch, but then it takes me forever to make merch. It's because I'm not an artist, you guys. I am a video editor. I just dabble making graphic design. I dabble in, you know, not dabble, but I have to do it for work when I need to, and it's always a drag because it's not my forte. So whenever I do chibis, it takes a while for me to be in the mood of in the mood. So today I was in the mood for drawing some Daniel, and and so today that's what happened. Today I felt the spirit move me, and well, there went Daniel. Hold on a second. I didn't think I got the. Okay, there it is. That should be it. Let's see. So I'm still not quite sure how to make it. Like, do I want it in mostly like a print? Do I want it? So let me show it to you. Do I want it mostly as a print? Do I want it mostly as I don't know. Like, am I aiming to make a Discord sticker out of it? Like, I'm not really sure exactly how I'm doing it. I just got caught up in it. So anyway, so what do you guys think? Hold on. Let me see. Hold on. So that's as far as I got before I was like, oh my gosh. In fact, I didn't even get water, you guys. I'm sipping here on the last of my cold tea. All right, so enough about that. I think stalled enough to get the notifications out, and it is time for us to read some Jane Eyre. So yeah, Red Tempest, I was not doing at Ferdinand pics. I was working, okay? So please refrain from slandering Magpie. All right, let's do this, you guys. Some Jane Eyre, chapter 36. All right. The daylight came. I rose at dawn. I busied myself for an hour or two with arranging my things in my chamber, drawers, and wardrobe, in the order wherein I should wish to leave them during a brief absence. Meantime, I heard St. John quit his room. He stopped at my door. I feared he would knock, but no. But a slip of paper was passed under the door. I took it up, and it bore these words. You left me too suddenly last night. Had you stayed but a little longer, you would have laid your hand on the Christian's cross and the angel's crown. I shall expect your clear decision when I return this day fortnight. Meantime, watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. The spirit, I trust, is willing, but the flesh, I see, is weak. I shall pray for you hourly. Yours, St. John. My spirit, I answered mentally, is willing to do what is right, and my flesh, I hope, is strong enough to accomplish the will of heaven, when once that will is distinctly known to me. At any rate, it shall be strong enough to search, inquire, to grope for an outlet from this cloud of doubt, and find the open day of certainty. It was the first day of June, yet the morning was overcast and chilly. Rain beat fast on my casement. I heard the front door open, and St. John pass out. Looking through the window, I saw him traverse the garden. He took the way over the misty moors in the direction of Whitcross, where he would meet the coach. In a few more hours I shall succeed you in that track, cousin, thought I. I too have a coach to meet at Whitcross. I too have some to see and ask after in England, before I depart forever. It wanted yet 2 hours of breakfast time. I filled the interval in walking softly about my room and pondering the visitation which had given my plans their present bent. I recalled that inward sensation I had experienced, for I could recall it, with all its unspeakable strangeness. I recalled the voice I had heard. Again I questioned whence it came, as vainly as before. It seemed in me, not in the external world. I asked, was it a mere nervous impression, a delusion? I could not conceive or believe. It was more like an inspiration. The wondrous shock of feeling had come like the earthquake which shook the foundations of Paul and Silas's prison. It had opened the doors of the soul's cell and loosed its bands. It had wakened it out of its sleep, whence it sprang trembling, listening, aghast. Then vibrated thrice a cry on my startled ear, and in my quaking heart, and through my spirit, which neither feared nor shook, but exulted as if in joy over the success of one effort it had been privileged to make, independent of the cumbrous body. Ere many days, I said, as I terminated my musings, I will know something of him whose voice seemed last night to summon me. Letters have proved of no avail. Personal inquiry shall replace them. At breakfast, I announced to Diana and Mary that I was going on a journey and should be absent for at least 4 days. Alone, Jane? They asked. Yes. It was to see or hear news of a friend about whom I had for some time been uneasy. They might have said, as I have no doubt they thought, that they had believed me to be without friends, save them, for indeed I had often said so, but with their true natural delicacy, they abstained from comment, except that Diana asked me if I was sure I was well enough to travel. I looked very pale, she observed. I replied that nothing ailed me save anxiety of mind, which I hoped soon to alleviate. It was easy to make my further arrangements, for I was troubled with no inquiries, no surmises. Having once explained to them that I could not now be explicit about my plans, they kindly and wisely acquiesced in the silence in which I pursued them, according to the privilege of free action I should, under similar circumstances, have afforded them. I left Moor House at 3:00 p.m., and soon after 4, I stood at the foot of the signpost of Whitcross, waiting the arrival of the coach which was to take me to distant Thornfield. Amidst the silence of those solitary roads and desert hills, I heard it approach from a great distance. It was the same vehicle whence, a year ago, I had alighted one summer evening on this very spot. How desolate and hopeless and objectless! It stopped as I beckoned. I entered, not now obliged to part with my whole fortune as the price of its accommodation. Once more on the road to Thornfield, I felt like the messenger pigeon flying home. It was a journey of 36 hours. I had set out from Whitcross on a Tuesday afternoon, and early on the succeeding Thursday morning, the coach stopped to water the horses at a wayside inn, situated in the midst of scenery whose green hedges and large fields and low pastoral hills, how mild of feature and verdant of hue compared to the stern North Midland moors of Morton, met my eye like the lineaments of a once familiar face. Yes, I knew the character of this landscape. I was sure we were near my bourne. "How far is Thornfield Hall from here?" I asked the ostler. "Just 2 miles, ma'am, across the fields." My journey is closed, I thought to myself. I got out of the coach, gave a box I had into the ostler's charge to be kept till I called for it, paid my fare, satisfied the coachman, and was going. The brightening day gleamed on the sign of the inn, and I read in gilt letters, "The Rochester Arms." My heart leapt up. I was already on my master's very lands. It fell again. The thought struck it. Your master himself may be beyond the British Channel, for aught you know, And then, if he is at Thornfield Hall, towards which you hasten, who besides him is there? His lunatic wife, and you have nothing to do with him. You dare not speak to him or seek his presence. You have lost your labor. Oh, you had better go no further, urged the monitor. Ask information of the people at the inn. They can give you all you seek. They can solve your doubts at once. Go up to that man and inquire if Mr. Rochester be at home. The suggestion was sensible, and yet I could not force myself to act on it. I so dreaded a reply that would crush me with despair. To prolong doubt was to prolong hope, and might yet once more see the hall under the ray of her star. There was the stile before me, the very fields through which I had hurried, blind, deaf, distracted with a revengeful fury tracking and scourging me on the morning I fled from Thornfield. There I well knew what course I had resolved to take. I was in the midst of them. How fast I walked! How I ran sometimes! How I looked forward to catch the first view of the well-known woods! With what feelings I welcomed single trees I knew, and familiar glimpses of meadow and hill between them. At last the woods rose. The rookery clustered dark. A loud cawing broke the morning stillness. Strange delight inspired me. On I hastened. Another field crossed, a lane threaded, and there were the courtyard walls, the back offices, the house itself, the rookery still hid. My first view of it shall be in the front, I determined, where its bold battlements will strike the eye nobly at once, and where I can single out my master's very window. Perhaps he will be standing at it. He rises early. Perhaps he is now walking in the orchard or on the pavement in front. Could I but see him, but a moment! Surely in that case I should not be so mad as to run to him. I cannot tell. I'm not certain. And if I did, what then? God bless him, what then? Who would be hurt by my once more tasting the life his glance can give me? Oh, I rave. Perhaps at this moment he is watching the sun rise over the Pyrenees, or on the tideless sea of the south. I had coasted along the lower wall of the orchard, turned its angle. There was a gate just there, opening into the meadow between two stone pillars crowned by stone balls. From behind one pillar, I could peep round quietly at the full front of the mansion. I advanced my head with precaution, desirous to ascertain if any bedroom window blinds were yet drawn up. Battlements, windows, long front, all from this sheltered station were at my command. The crows sailing overhead perhaps watched me while I took this survey. I wondered what they thought. They must have considered I was very careful and timid at first, and that gradually I grew very bold and reckless. A peep, and then a long stare, and then a departure from my niche, and a string out into the meadow, and a sudden stop full in front of the great mansion, and a protracted, hearty gaze toward it. What affectation of diffidence was this at first? They might have demanded. What stupid regardlessness now? Here an illustration, reader. A lover finds his mistress asleep on a mossy bank. He wishes to catch a glimpse of her fair face without waking her. He steals softly over the grass, careful not to make sound. He pauses, fancying she has stirred. He withdraws. Not for worlds would he be seen. All is still. He again advances. He bends above her. A light veil rests on her features. He lifts it, bends lower. Now his eyes anticipate the vision of beauty, warm and blooming and lovely in rest. How hurried was their first glance, but how they fix! How he starts! How he suddenly and vehemently clasps in both arms the form he dared not, a moment since, touch with his finger. How he calls aloud a name and drops his burden and gazes on it wildly. He thus grasps and cries and gazes because he no longer fears to waken by any sound he can utter, by any movement he can make. He thought his love slept sweetly. he finds she is stone dead. I looked with timorous joy toward a stately house. I saw a blackened ruin. No need to cower behind the gatepost indeed, to peep up at chamber lattices, fearing life was astir behind them. No need to listen for doors opening, to fancy steps on the pavement or the gravel walk. The lawn, the grounds were trodden and waste, the portal yawned void. The front was, as I had once seen it in a dream, but a well-like wall, very high and very fragile looking, perforated with paneless windows. No roof, no battlements, no chimneys, all had crashed in. And there was the silence of death about it, the solitude of a lonesome wild. No wonder that letters addressed to people here had never arrived and had never received an answer, as well as dispatch epistles to a vault in a church aisle. The grim blackness of the stones told by what fate the hall had fallen, by conflagration. But how kindled? What story belonged to this disaster? What loss besides mortar and marble and woodwork had followed upon it? Had life been wrecked as well as property? If so, whose? Dreadful question. There was no one here to answer it. Not even dumb sign, mute token. In wandering round the shattered walls and through the devastated interior, I gathered evidence that the calamity was not of late occurrence. Winter snows, I thought, had drifted through that void arch. Winter rains beaten in at those hollow casements. For amidst the drenched piles of rubbish, spring had cherished vegetation. Grass and weed grew here and there between the stones and fallen rafters. And oh, where meantime was the hapless owner of this wreck? In what land? Under what auspices? My eye involuntarily wandered to the great church tower near the gates, and I asked, "Is he with the Mr de Rochester, sharing the shelter of his narrow marble house?" Some answer must be had to these questions. I could find it nowhere but at the inn, and thither ere long I returned. The host himself brought my breakfast into the parlor. I requested him to shut the door and sit down. I had some questions to ask him, but when he complied, I scarcely knew how to begin. Such horror had I of the possible answers, and yet the spectacle of desolation I had just left prepared me in a measure for a tale of misery. The host was a respectable-looking, middle-aged man. "You know Thornfield Hall, of course?" "Yes, ma'am. I lived there once." "Did you? Not in my time, I thought. You're a stranger to me." "I was the late Mr. Rochester's butler," he added. "The late!" I seemed to have received with full force the blow I had been trying to evade. "The late? Is he dead?" "I mean the present gentleman, Mr. Edwards' father," he explained. I breathed again. My blood resumed its flow, fully assured by these words that Mr. Edward, my Mr. Rochester, God bless him wherever he was at least alive, was, in short, the present gentleman. Gladdening words. It seemed I could hear all that was to come, whatever the disclosures might be, with comparative tranquillity. Since he was not in the grave, I could bear, I thought, to learn that he was at the antipodes. "Is Mr. Rochester living at Thornfield Hall now?" I asked, knowing, of course, what the answer would be, but yet desirous of deferring the direct question as to where he really was. "No, ma'am. Oh, no. No one is living there. I suppose you're a stranger in these parts, or you would have heard what happened last autumn. Thornfield Hall is quite a ruin. It was burned down just about harvest time. A dreadful calamity. Such an immense quantity of valuable property destroyed. Hardly any of the furniture could be saved. The fire broke out at the dead of night, and before the engines arrived from Millcote, the building was one mass of flame. It was a terrible spectacle. I witnessed it myself." "At dead of night," I muttered. "Yes, that was ever the hour of fatality at Thornfield. Was it known how it originated? I demanded.
They guessed, ma'am, they guessed. Indeed, I should say was ascertained beyond a doubt. You're not perhaps aware, he continued, edging his chair a little near the table and speaking low, that there was a lady, a lunatic, kept in the house.
I have heard something of it.
She was kept in very close confinement, ma'am. People, even for some years, was not absolutely certain of her existence. No one saw her. They only knew by rumor that such a person was at the Hall. And who or what she was, it was difficult to conjecture. They said Mr. Edward had brought her from abroad, and some believed she had been his mistress. But a queer thing happened a year since, a very queer thing.
I feared now to hear my own story. I endeavored to recall him to the main fact. And this lady?
This lady, ma'am, he answered, turned out to be Mr. Rochester's wife. The discovery was brought about in the strangest way. There was a young lady, a governess at the Hall, that Mr. Rochester fell in—
But the fire, I suggested.
I'm coming to that, ma'am. That Mr. Edward fell in love with.
He's absolutely like, I'm going to tell my story. Sit down, be patient. He's going to spill all the tea. All of the tea shall be spilled in this moment. And Jane has no choice but to sit and listen. Okay, let's hear the tea. Okay, sorry.
But the fire! I'm coming to that, ma'am. That Mr. Rochester fell in love with. The servants say they never saw anybody so much in love as he was. He was after her continually. They used to watch him, servants will, you know. And he set store on her past everything. For all, nobody but him thought her so very handsome. She was a little small thing, they say, almost like a child. I never saw her myself, but I've heard Leah, the housemaid, tell of her. Leah liked her well enough. Mr. Rochester was about 40, and this governess not 20. And you see, when gentlemen of his age fall in love with girls, they're often like as if they were bewitched. Well, he would marry her.
You shall tell me this part of the story another time, I said. But now I have a particular reason for wishing to hear all about the fire. Was it suspected that this lunatic, Mrs. Rochester, had any hand in it?
You've hit it, ma'am. It is quite certain that it was her, and nobody but her, that set it going. She had a woman to take care of her called Mrs. Poole, an able woman in her line and very trustworthy, but for one fault, a fault common to a deal of them nurses and matrons. She kept a private bottle of gin by her, and now and then took a drop overmuch. It's excusable, for she had a hard life of it, but still it was dangerous. For when Mrs. Poole was fast asleep after gin and water, the mad lady, who was as cunning as a witch, would take the keys out of her pocket, let herself out of her chamber, and go roaming about the house doing any wild mischief that came into her head. They say she had nearly burnt her husband in his bed once, but I don't know about that. However, on this night, she set fire first to the hangings of the room next her own, and then she got down to a lower story and made her way to the chamber that had been the governess's. She was like as if she knew somehow how matters had gone on and had a spite at her, and she kindled the bed there. But there was nobody sleeping in it, fortunately. The governess had run away 2 months before, and for all Mr. Rochester sought her as if she had been the most precious thing he had in the world, he never could hear a word of her, and grew savage, quite savage, on his disappointment. He never was a wild man, but he got dangerous after he lost her. He would be alone too. He sent Mrs. Fairfax, the housekeeper, away to her friends at a distance, but he did it handsomely, for he settled an annuity on her for life, and she deserved it. She was a very good woman. Miss Adele, a ward he had, was put to school. He broke off acquaintance with all the gentry, and shut himself up like a hermit in the Hall.
What? Did he not leave England?
Leave England? Bless you, no. He would not cross the doorstones of the house except at night, when he walked just like a ghost about the grounds and in the orchard as if he had lost his senses. which it is my opinion he had, for a more spirited, bolder, keener gentleman than he was before that midget of a governess crossed him, you never saw, ma'am. He was not a man given to wine, or cards, or racing, as some are, and he was not so very handsome, but he had a courage and a will of his own, if ever man had. I knew him from a boy, you see, and for my part, I have always wished that Miss Eyre had been sunk in the sea before she came to Thornfield Hall. Hoo, dang. Yeah, Jane, you better not tell him who you are now, because he has a bone to pick now with you.
Then Mr. Rochester was at home when the fire broke out?
Yes, indeed he was. And he went up the attics when all was burning above and below, and got the servants out of their beds, and helped them down himself, and went back to get his mad wife out of her cell. And then they called out to him that she was on the roof, where she was standing, waving her arms above the battlements, and shouting out till they could hear her a mile off. I saw her, and heard her with my own eyes. She was a big woman, and had long black hair. We could see it streaming against the flames as she stood. I witnessed, and several more witnessed, Mr. Rochester ascend through the skylight on the roof. We heard him call, "Bertha!" We saw him approach her, and then, ma'am, she yelled and gave a spring, and the next minute she lay smashed on the pavement.
Dead?
Dead. Ah, dead, as the stones on which her brains and blood were scattered. Good God! You may well say so, ma'am. It was frightful. He shuddered.
And afterwards?
Well, ma'am, afterwards, the house was burned to the ground. There are only some bits of walls standing now.
Were any other lives lost?
No. Perhaps it would have been better if there had.
What do you mean?
Poor Mr. Edward, he ejaculated. I little thought ever to have seen it. Some say it was a just judgment on him for keeping his first marriage secret, and wanting to take another wife while he had one living. But I pity him, for my part.
You said he was still alive?
Yes, he's alive, but many think he had better be dead.
Why? How?
My blood was again running cold.
Where is he? Is he in England?
Aye, he's in England. He can't get out of England, I fancy. He's a fixture now.
What agony was this? And the man seemed resolved to protect it.
He is stone blind, he said at last. Yes, he is stone blind, is Mr. Edward.
I had dreaded worse. I had dreaded he was mad. I summoned strength to ask what had caused this calamity.
It was all his own courage, and a body may say his kindness. In a way, ma'am, he wouldn't leave the house till everyone else was out before him. As he came down the great staircase at last, after Mrs. Rochester had flung herself from the battlements, there was a great crash. All fell. He was taken out from under the ruins, alive, but sadly hurt. A beam had fallen in such a way as to protect him partially, that one eye was knocked out, and one hand so crushed that Mr. Carter, the surgeon, had to amputate it directly. The other eye inflamed. He lost the sight of that also. He is now helpless indeed, blind and a cripple.
Where is he? Where does he live now?
At Ferndine, a manor house on a farm he has, about 30 miles off. Quite a desolate spot.
Who is with him?
Old John and his wife. He would have none else. He's quite broken down, they say.
Have you any sort of conveyance?
We have a chaise, ma'am, and a very handsome chaise. Let
it be got ready instantly, and if your postboy can drive me to Ferndine before dark this day, I'll pay you both and him twice the hire you usually demand.
End of chapter.
Well, what do you guys think of what happened? So, unfortunately, poor Rochester, we finally get the story of, first of all, why all her letters were being kept, just never received any answer. Well, because just a little, like 2 months after she left Thornfield, it burnt down. So, oh my goodness. So it's a very dramatic telling, and I liked how she had to, like, it was like, and the narrative was given to us just as she was listening to it. Like, it wasn't like she told us what happened. Like, she heard it from people and she pieced it together, and then she writes to us like, first of all, no, we had to have all of the details, all, like, everything that man saw, all his feelings, how he's like, he wishes that Jane had never arrived to England. I don't know, it just kind of makes it like interesting. So let's see, do you guys think that Rochester deserved what he got, though? I don't know, he says he pities him, but he says that there's also people who say that it's a judgment on him for having tried to become a bigamist, to marry somebody else when he was already married. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Let's see. So again, just want to say hello to the peeps on the chat. Those of you who joined me as I was reading, thank you for joining me. Let's see. Welcome to, let's see, Little Butterfly and Crusher and Noodles, Dumplings, Kimchi. Hello. Crusher just posted some spoilery memes. Crusher, can I post them? Can I see them now, or should I wait until the end of the story? Let's see. Akihan is joining us, says, I didn't know there was one today. Of course, there's always one on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do a live read. It depends, though, what time it's usually done. Whether it's Monday morning, like my time, or... Yeah, usually I try to do them most in the morning or at noon. But today, it just happened that this time worked best for me. Okay, so Crusher, I will go and check out the memes right now, and then depending on the spoiler factor, I shall... Oh, somebody pinged me. Who pinged me? That's okay. I'll check that out later. Oh, I see a variety of memes. Hold on a second. Oh no. Okay. All right, let's see the memes. Yes, these are good memes, and I think we can watch them safely now. Bertha Mason, where Rochester falls in love with Jane. So good. Grace Poole when she... I'm sorry, you guys. It's so stupid to laugh out loud while on the stream. But yeah, Grace Poole when she wakes up from her gin sleep. I gotta love that. And this one, Crusher. Oh man. Oh man. And then this is... Okay, bravo, Crusher, for that one. You did ask me a while ago, like where to find a full Bertha shot. So it says, I think I forget what Bertha this is from. I think it's 1996 or 1997. Let me know which Bertha this is from. But yes, good job on this one, dude. Like, the wonders of technology, you guys. Good job on that one. And of course, right. If you guys don't like Jane Eyre, you just have to read it again and watch the videos or the adaptations over and over again. It's a good story. And anyway, so today, you know what? I feel like that chapter went by pretty quick, but I don't want to read the next one because I want to just pair together the last two chapters. So I'm just gonna end it here, I think. But for now, let's just kind of sit back and talk a little bit more about what we just read, and not just on this one, but in the previous read along, where we had the culmination of St. John's absolute villainy in trying to manipulate Jane into a marriage where she would not be happy and where he would absolutely make her miserable. So I don't know. I think we have a really compelling story. We have all sorts of symbolisms, foils going on here and there. And the other day I was reading some commentaries and stuff like that, some on Jane Eyre. And I want to read to you guys a quote that really struck me, and it made me like go like, oh snap. But okay. This is from chapter 34. So St. John's assessment of Jane's good qualities reveals much of his own personality. He admires Jane for her strong constitution and for her willingness to work. He notes that she is, and here's a quote, this is what he called her, docile, diligent, disinterested, faithful, constant, and courageous, very gentle, and very heroic. Now we're like, well, that's nice. But you know what? This commentator also said, this is a list of characteristics that might apply equally well to Carlo, his dog. So I kind of feel like he would be nicer and kinder to his dog than he would to like Jane, who needs and who absolutely thrives on validation, but because he sees emotions and attachments, especially romantic attachments, as a weakness, almost as a sin. He is just an absolute robot of a human person. You know, he values all of these things, especially, like I said, the very first thing he listed was docile, okay? Docile. But at no time does he mention the quality which stands out in Jane the most, you know, her heart. Love. Love has no place in the list of merits he requires for his missionary endeavors or in the list of requirements for a wife. Yeah, so that's St. John. But then we have Rochester. So it's so cool to compare both characters because they're absolute foils to each other. Rochester is as restless and discontent as he, but he happens to have an enjoyment of life, even though he has lived and seen a lot of things and had a dissipated lifestyle. He enjoys life. He doesn't issue attachments. He doesn't think that that love and family and are things that are you know, to be scorned. In fact, he has been searching all his life for companionship, for somebody to love and to cherish all this time. Compared to St. John, who is the epitome, supposedly, of virtue and male beauty, he wants none of that stuff. So, St. John, he kind of follows the precepts of Christianity, but he lacks the humanistic spark that actually Rochester seems to have, and which Jane also has. So, unfortunately, I don't know. I think kind of was pretty harsh what happened to Rochester, though. But we still have yet to hear how he is, like his mind. How is he embittered? Is he maddened? We don't know. Like, has all of these judgments hardened him more, or have they served to make him, you know, reflect on his life. You know, before he was very prideful. Remember when he asked Jane to marry him? And then he was saying like, oh, I am going to deck you in jewels and you are going to be mine. And she felt like she was just becoming some kind of doll or plaything for him because he was so proud. Maybe he's now been humbled enough to maybe not be as proud and sultan-like as he was. Because going into the marriage, she had not liked the fact that he was so proud and so self-reliant. So he needed to be knocked down a peg or two. So let's see. I think getting your eye knocked out and your hand amputated might work for it, but we don't know yet how will this ordeal affect him. Like, yeah. So, because see, a lot of people when they receive, like, we all have trials and tribulations, but a lot of people will harden their hearts and get even angrier get angry at God when they experience these hardships, when they're meant to test us. And not really test us, but we all have to go through them. So we just have to work through them. And, you know, some people, they will just get hardened. Some people will be like, okay, like, they learned their lesson. So I don't know. We don't know. Let's see what the karma bus, did it work? Did Rochester learn his lesson? Here's another one from Crusher, by the way. Well, since I was going on a rant on St. John, gosh, I really hate those sideburns. Hey girl, you were born for labor, not love. Yeah, forsooth. Yes, Akihana says Rochester and Jane definitely balance each other more pre-Bertha, that is. Akihana also says that he's a religious Sheldon. Oh no. Also, hello Patrick. No worries, I was also a little late. Like 20 minutes late. So I hope you caught some of the reading. Yeah, so what do you guys think of what happened with the story with Bertha? Unfortunately, Bertha met a very tragic end. And there's a lot of literary writers and whatever, critics, whatever, that they take a lot of symbolism. Like, this book is rife with symbolism. So they place an emphasis on the Bertha story. And if you're interested in that, you can read a book that's kind of like a take on Bertha's story called White Sargasso Sea. I read it soon after I read Jane Eyre, but I didn't quite get the full oomph of it, because of course a lot of the themes went way over my head at that time. Again, I read this, I don't know, late middle school or early high school. So, but yeah, there's a lot to be said about some of the symbolism here. Bertha coming in from the West Indies, Bertha as a symbol of like the results of colonialism. You have madness, you have abuse, you have sexual exploitation. She embodies all of those things, the filthy underbelly of colonialism, especially British colonialism, which just, well, you guys know the story of colonialism. Yes, there was a lot of improvement for people, advancement and such, but while the gospel was being spread to people, another part, and a far more damaging part, I believe, was just absolutely ravaging the people and the natural resources and the cultures of people who were being colonized. So this is not quite an overt commentary on colonialism, but if you delve deep enough and take a different angle, you can see that there is a little bit of that here. If you want to explore more on that, though, you can read White Sargasso Sea, which is pretty interesting. It's definitely not a romantic story, because you guys know how it ends. But it does tell, like, it gives Bertha's point of view. Oh, Noodles, Dumplings, Kimchi, you have read White Sargasso Sea? Okay. Let's see. Today. Crusher says, y'all are too harsh on St. John. Man was just trying to serve the Lord in his own flawed way. Well, I'm not sure if you're serious or not. I'm not sure if you're serious or not, but I disagree in how he went about serving the Lord in his own way. I really do. Because, well, I guess I can talk about it later, I guess. But I just don't quite agree with St. John's methods of serving the Lord. If it means manipulating somebody and using the name of God to get somebody to do your will, to do what you want. That's just not godly. So I don't know. I think you might be a little, like, I don't know if you meant it or not, but I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? What's that? Am I being too harsh? Is it just me who has, I don't know. He's just all the red flags. Akihana says, in that previous chapter, I remember thinking that we got a bookworm crossover wherein Jane had received Rochester's last will when she heard him calling her name. Ooh, good point. Oh, yeah. Well, thankfully, though, he didn't die, but it makes sense. It kind of had that kind of vibe, where where she was receiving his last will. No, thankfully, no, he's not dead. He's just maimed, unfortunately. Red Tempest just stepped on fire ants? Dude, what are you doing? Get out of there. Oh my gosh, you've been doing yard work. Oh my goodness. Please be careful. Okay. Crusher says, I was being flippant. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, I was wondering. Are you reading with me? Are we reading the same book, Crusher? Yakihana says, I know this is blasphemy, but St. John is like a mix of Ferdinand and Emmanuel, and I do not agree. I do not like it. Okay, fine. I do not like it. I may agree a little, but I don't like it. Because Ferdinand is just not. No. Noodles Dumplings Kimchi says, I hate St. John. He's emotionally manipulative and selfish, but is so not self-aware. Exactly, right? Yeah, he's definitely not at all like Ferdinand. The only thing that he has that is like Ferdinand is, one, he has good looks. Two, he works in what? He works in the church. That's about it, you guys. I can't think of any other thing. And I think it's best that we don't try to find more things, because I don't like St. John. He's one of the characters that I dislike the most in literature, just because he was so vile and toxic. Anyway. Oh man, I'm back. Those ants hurt. How many did you get bits? How do you deal with getting bit by ants, by fire ants? Oh my gosh, you must have stepped on one of the on their heels, no? Be careful out there. So, beautiful people, I hope that you enjoyed today's read-along. I am going to finish this book next read-along, so it'll be an even, 25 read-alongs. Woof! That's almost twice as much as the Blue Castle. The Blue Castle had 13 sessions. It's gonna have 25 sessions, so it'll almost be twice as long. But I hope that you have enjoyed it so far. And okay, Red Tempest, you're misbehaving. I'm going to remove this horrible comment where you say that they both have sideburns. If you dare put a sideburn Ferdinand in front of my eyeballs, I will get very angry. Akiana says, I'm saying his good parts plus manipulative were like Ferdinand, but everything else is not. Yeah, I guess. I guess. You may have a point. There are some parts that we did enumerate them at the beginning. That St. John did have some Ferdinand things. But ultimately, you know, they're different people. Once, if you're in pre-pub, you have gotten some, you have gotten a glimpse of some of Ferdinand's thoughts, and we know that he is not the kind of person that St. John is. St. John absolutely just could discard family, could discard love, could discard attachments just for his own sake. Whereas Ferdinand, the one thing that he's been wanting all his life is to have a family. So the kind of person that's there you go. Absolutely. All right, you guys, I am gonna head on out. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I will see you all on Monday. Thank you for joining me, and thank you again for your patience. For this Magpie started the stream a little late, but don't worry, I will be here for Monday morning bright and early, so I hope you also join me then, where we finish Jane Eyre at long last, you guys. Huzzah. Until Monday, you guys, take care and bye-bye.